Welcome to the debate. So, in the new Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer, Peter Parker is, he's violently mutating. He is literally cocooned and growing organic webbing.
Right, and set 4 years after the memory-wiping events of No Way Home, we are looking at a deeply, profoundly isolated Peter Parker.
Exactly. He's operating as a recognized hero with the key to New York City, while his former friends Ned and MJ have returned from MIT with absolutely no memory of him.
Which is just, brutal to watch.
It really is. And that sets up the central question we are analyzing today. Does the trailer indicate that Peter's dramatic biological evolution is the central driving plot of the film? Because, that is the side I will be arguing today.
And I'll be making the case that this visceral, physical metamorphosis is merely a first-act misdirection. The true plot actually revolves around an obscured, body-hopping mind control threat and, shadowy organizations operating just out of frame.
To see why the biology is the actual plot, you have to look at the cause and effect of his breakdown. The footage really highlights this profound isolation.
The daily, grueling grind of total solitude, yeah.
Right. If you pause the trailer during those quick montage cuts, you probably notice he's buying roses for MJ's housewarming, knowing she is dating someone else.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts. And he's doing his laundry covered in bruises. He's notably using his own broken washing machine surrounded by high-tech gear, deliberately avoiding the public laundromat just to hide those injuries.
The psychological weight of that is, it's immense.
Exactly. And Marvel frequently uses visceral physical mutation as a visual metaphor for unresolvable psychological trauma. This psychological weight literally triggers a physical collapse. We see him faint, wearing the exact same clothes he wore to MJ's party, and that directly precedes his regression into that cocoon state.
It's a striking sequence, certainly.
It is. And the trailer goes out of its way to emphasize the sensory overload of this change, like focusing on the deafening, isolated sound of a single water drop hitting a sink. Reconfiguring his body and mind to cope with his trauma is the fundamental focus of the film.
I hear you. And as a viewer, your eye is naturally drawn to that organic webbing. Yet if you look closely at almost all the web-swinging shots in the trailer, Peter is not wearing those new bulky bracelet-like web shooters.
Wait, really? He's not?
He's not. He's using organic webbing almost the entire time, which proves this transformation is established and completed very early on. The actual plot is deliberately hidden from us in flashes.
Hidden how?
Well, look at the unnamed captive girl in a glass room with roller skates, or the seemingly innocent old woman emerging from an armor tank, fully mind-controlled. The metamorphosis is, it's just the appetizer.
But if this was just a quick physical reset, as you suggest, then why bring in Bruce Banner?
Well, Banner's...
No, think about it. He shows up at Empire State University holding his inhibitor device. He scans Peter, and the screen explicitly classifies Peter as an enhanced human, pointing out the lack of an X gene.
Right.
Bruce Banner is the foremost expert on gamma radiation. Because the original Spider may have been exposed to gamma, bringing him in signals this is an ongoing, movie-long scientific struggle with Peter's powers.
I come at it from a different way, actually. I think Banner's narrative utility is much narrower here. He's really just there to rule out the mutant angle.
Just to rule it out?
Yeah. In this universe, if someone spontaneously mutates, the immediate assumption is the X gene. Banner is essentially acting as a human centrifuge. He's separating the gamma-enhanced elements from mutant genetics so the plot can cleanly move forward. Once we establish that Peter isn't a mutant, Banner's job is done.
I can't agree with that. Because think about the mechanics of what Peter is experiencing. He's losing control over his web pressure, his aiming, his sensory input.
Sure, there's an adjustment.
It's like an Olympic gymnast suddenly growing 6 inches overnight. You don't just figure out your new center of gravity in a quick training montage. Relearning your own body, synthesizing organic webbing internally, that requires Banner's ongoing mentorship.
It requires an adjustment period, yes. But the trailer clearly shifts its focus to the external threats he's facing, the street-level villains.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Those external threats are the biological tests. The street-level villains we see are brutal physical trials designed specifically for this evolving body.
How so?
Take Scorpion. He's robbing a bank in a mechanical exosuit. notably without a venomous tail. He's using blunt force trauma. If Peter's internal web pressure is fluctuating because of his mutation, a fight relying entirely on kinetic deflection forces Peter to test his new bone density, not his gadgets.
Okay, but
Same with the Punisher, crashing his battle van. Notice Peter's restraint. He actively stops Punisher from using lethal force on those miniguns to save the lives of whoever is inside those armor tanks.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. Scorpion and the Punisher are massive distractions. You're looking at the explosions and completely missing the quiet horror.
Missing the horror?
Yes! Let's go back to that old woman in the tank and the unnamed captive girl. If you look at how the mind control works in those flashes, the trailer establishes a very specific limitation. The entity requires eye contact to jump hosts. It moves from one body to the next, one at a time.
Oh, so because he wears a mask? Wow, okay, I see that. His eyes are hidden, so he's immune.
Exactly. The core threat is a cerebral, viral possession, not a physical brawl.
That is an incredible detail about the eye contact. I'll give you that. But let me push back here. How does a street-level brawl with an exosuit scorpion logically connect to William Metzger?
Well, Metzger
Metzger is a guy whose whole organizational platform is anti-mutant hysteria. If the threat is entirely this cerebral, body-hopping entity, why is Metzger explicitly warning Spider-Man about a massive unseen threat? The biological angle, like the tension between mutants and enhanced humans, bridges that gap perfectly.
because organizations like Metzger's thrive on exploiting fear of the unseen. But if you want to talk about physical escalation bridging to unseen threats, look at the jailbreak sequence involving the Hand.
Which perfectly supports my point. In that sequence, Peter is unmasked, and we literally see his eyes change color. That's a hallmark of his biological mutation taking hold. He violently breaks a ninja's blade with his bare hands. He's not relying on gadgets. He's relying on a raw, aggressive, animalistic power. That represents the thematic climax of his physical evolution taking over.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered how the Hand is operating in that scene? The Hand are ancient mystical ninjas, yet here they are using advanced tech and large heavy weapons instead of their traditional gear.
Yeah, that was definitely weird.
Why would they do that? We see Sheila Rivera in the trailer implying a massive power vacuum left by Wilson Fisk. Ancient mystics using militarized tech proves this isn't just a gang war, it's a corporate or shadow government takeover.
Ah, I see where you're going.
Right. This uncharacteristic behavior by the Hand proves they are tied to that hidden organizational threat, not just serving as punching bags for Peter's animalistic rage.
So looking at the totality of the evidence, I still see Brand New Day as an intimate, grueling story about a broken vigilante. His intense psychological isolation manifests as a violent, gamma-linked biological rebirth.
The body horror aspect.
Yeah, the cocoon, the organic webbing, the brutal physical tests with Scorpion testing his bone density, they all point to a man literally shedding his old skin because the weight of his reality was just too much to bear.
And while that physical rebirth is visually striking, the trailer's deliberate obscuring of the main villain tells a much more insidious story. When you combine the specific mechanics of eye contact mind control, high-tech ninjas acting entirely out of character, and a captive girl in a glass room, everything points to a complex conspiracy thriller.
A thriller where the mutation is just a tool.
Exactly. The physical evolution is just the armor he needs to survive what's really coming.
I think where we absolutely find convergence is that Peter's subconscious connections ground this narrative emotionally, regardless of whether the primary threat is biological or psychological.
Oh, absolutely.
Seeing MJ wearing the Dahlia necklace or, keeping his roses in a water jar, these subtle ties anchor his humanity while his world undergoes these massive shifts.
Totally agree. It really reflects the value of looking past a trailer's surface-level spectacle to analyze its structural omissions. The things they actively choose not to show us suggest the audience has so much more to explore in the source material's hidden details.
Precisely. We can get so caught up watching the biological transformation on the surface, we forget to ask who might be pulling the strings behind the scenes.